All right, let's talk about a K-shaped recovery. Everyone's been talking about all these different letters in the alphabet. Is it going to be a V-shaped recovery? Is it going to be a Nike swoosh? Is it going to be an O? It's going to be a T. Now the letter of the day is that it's going to be a K-shaped recovery, and I'll show you what I mean exactly what a K-shaped recovery could look like. On the one side, of course, you have the major dip, right? You have the big decline, all the job losses that we saw. But the big fear, and now the data is starting to show that the recovery has helped a certain sector of the economy go up, while the have-nots continue to go down. It'd be incredibly difficult to be a weatherman, to point over at a weather map. I'm going backwards. So here was the decline. Here was the increase and the jobs returned for the haves. Then here, the have-nots. And isn't it the tale of this economy? Isn't it the tale of what we've been dealing with pre-pandemic? That the wage disparity, the income gap in this country was expanding. President Trump wants to talk about how he's been great for the economy. Well, let's be honest. Before he even took office, it was already down to about 4.5% unemployment when President Obama left office. So it dropped about another point under Trump. It was over 10%, and then it dropped. But where Obama and Trump have failed to do anything is on this income disparity and between the lowest income and the highest. And now we've seen billionaires just make more money than anything. And the middle class is all but evaporated. Under Obama and under Trump. Under both. And now we're seeing what this K-shaped recovery, now it's really shining a light on where we are right now with this recovery and why we need additional stimulus. This path towards an economic recovery shows just how sharply divided we all are. Wealthy Americans are earning and saving at record levels. So when they've gotten stimulus or they've not had to spend the money because they haven't been going out to dinner, they haven't been traveling, they've been able to save money in a record pace. Unlike anything we've ever seen before in American history. The have-nots have basically spent everything they had just to sustain themselves, and their jobs have been permanently lost. Because what we're looking at is that service sector job, is that is that person that worked in the hospitality industry, where that hotel had closed, or that wealthy person just isn't hiring them anymore to clean their house because they've moved to their second house up in the Hamptons or up in the Catskills or in Lake Tahoe, etc. And now, you know what? They don't need their Manhattan apartment cleaned anymore. The trend is on track right now with this K-shaped recovery to show that this income gap is going to get even larger. Just look at some of these numbers right now. Here's a disconnect. This is a perfect example of why Wall Street rewards unemployment. This is what I can't stand it. So I want you to pay attention to this. And you're not going to hear them talking about this on CNBC or Fox Business or Bloomberg or any of those other financial shows. Wall Street rewards unemployment in this way because what they'll talk about on one of those Wall Street programs is, oh my gosh, look at MGM. They're great today. MGM Resorts, right? Wow, MGM's resorts, their stock is up today. You should be investing in MGM right now. Their stock is going up. You know why it went up? Yeah, because they just laid off 18,000 people. So they announced that they're laying off 18,000 people, and guess what happens to their stock? It goes up because Wall Street rewards unemployment. Wall Street rewards when companies cut those additional workers because it means better profits. It means resiliency for that company when they can shed all of that additional weight off their back. Time and again through this pandemic, we've seen companies being rewarded by a higher stock value after they've cut employees or made those announcements that they were going to. Ford, same thing happened. They're announcing that they're going to cut 1,000 jobs. Guess what happens to their stock? United Airlines, American Airlines. I mean, the list goes on and on. So Wall Street and CNBC and these other shows love to tout these stock prices of these companies that have, guess what? Cut jobs. So the result right now is this economic picture. It's all splintered, where the stock market hits record highs, and you have new lows, the lowest of the low. We have nearly 30 million Americans who are receiving unemployment benefits and are receiving unemployment benefits. And still, they don't have that additional federal stimulus or the federal unemployment benefits. Jobless rate stands at about 8.4%. But for Black Americans, It's nearly double what it is for the traditional jobs number that we hear about that everyone wants to tout last week. It's double that number. And we're not talking about that. No one's talking about that. Black unemployment at 13%, nearly double what white unemployment is right now. Democrats are trying to at least seize on this opportunity in part to hit President Trump on this. Because this has been one of his strongest re-election arguments. He loves to tweet about the fact that Wall Street's doing so great, right? He did that last week. He tweeted about Wall Street having a record day, and then the next day it plummeted. I mean, he didn't tweet about it then. But he loves to talk about those jobs numbers, but he's not talking about black unemployment. He's not talking about Hispanic unemployment. And he's not talking about income gaps and wage disparity in this country. He's not, because he has nothing to stand on if he wants to talk about it. Well, Biden doesn't either. I mean, he had 8 years under President Obama where they could have worked on this big time and they didn't. So frankly, they're both to blame on this. But President Trump has the job right now. So it's his economy, right? It's his job. He's the leader of the free world. That blame is going to fall to him come election day. We don't usually reward high unemployment in an election year for the current sitting president. Americans saved, listen to this number, $3.2 trillion in July. Did you? How much did you save this summer? But the same amount that more than 1 in 7 households with children told the U.S. Census Bureau they sometimes or didn't have enough food. So think about that for a second. That's this K-shaped recovery, right? Look at the top part of the K. Top part of that K is those people that saved $3.2 trillion and got their jobs back. And the people down here at the bottom of the K, 1 in 7 households with children couldn't afford enough they didn't have enough money to buy food. More than a quarter of adults surveyed have reported paying down debt faster than usual. That's great. Again, that's the top part of the K. While the same proportion said they've been unable to make rent or mortgage payments or even pay a bill. That's the bottom part of the K. And while the employment rate for high-wage workers has almost entirely recovered, by mid-July it was down just 1% from where it was in January. Did you hear me? Employment rate for high-wage workers is back to almost exactly where it was in January, pre-pandemic. But it's 15% down for low-wage workers, according to Harvard's Opportunity Insights, their economic tracker. So again, this is why we need stimulus, folks. This is why we need stimulus, because Americans are hurting. And when you see images like this, and this sign that this woman's holding up is 2020 and black women are still asking for the bare minimum. Wage justice is racial justice. These are the images that we're seeing across this country, and yet the haves are doing just fine as this recovery climbs, but the have-nots, now they don't even have a job. Now the job that they did have that was low-paying is gone altogether. And they don't have a way to stay in their apartments. We don't have the unemployment benefits that are going to be extended. This is why we need a stimulus package. This is why we need direct, and this is why I've been calling for some sort of universal basic income, at least while we get through this pandemic, through January or February of 2021. So you can support that. You can write to your senator. You can call your member of Congress. I'll put a link in the show description so you can do that. I did that yesterday. Please call them and let them know what you're going through and demand this of them. They sometimes listen. It actually does work. When there's a groundswell of this, it does actually sway even Republican members of Congress to vote a certain way. It does work. We've seen it happen. So just if you sitting there think my phone call won't matter, it's like saying you don't think your vote would matter. It will. So those low-income consumers, they were most dependent on that $600 per week in unemployment benefits that expired in July. Congress appears, unlikely that it's going to pass anything anytime soon. Or maybe we're lucky we see something by October. But there's no question that this recovery has. I want to read this quote for you. Representative Kevin Brady of Texas, Republican, said this. There is no question the recovery has beat expectations, he said. He said that on a phone call this week. There's no question the recovery has beat expectations. And he is one of the people that would vote for this on that Republican on the House Ways and Means Committee. This is their thought. They're just looking at that one number. They're just looking at this one thing, which is the top of this K. That's what they're looking at. They're not looking at this bottom part. And that's why we're going to continue to talk about it here on the show. And we're going to continue to beat this drum until Congress gets the message. Smash that like button, please. Subscribe to our channel. And please don't forget to subscribe to our daily morning newsletter at morninginvest.com. And please check that link below to call your member of Congress to get this message out there.